here's Brody Brazil.
Okay, this video does kind of feel like a pretty good deal for you. It's almost like a 6 for the price of 1. There are so many different things and elements at play here. I could have branched these out into separate videos, but let's summarize it all like this. Kind of a stadium wars situation going on right now in Chicago. With recent developments from this morning, the Chicago Fire may have stolen a stadium site from the Chicago White Sox. To set that up, we first need to understand the bigger picture situation with Chicago sports. Let's look at all the major teams. The Bulls and Blackhawks, they're very content over at United Center. I don't know, has that been around 30 plus years? That building is soon to get new surroundings, so they're upgrading, they're expanding. United Center is fine for those two indoor winter sports teams. The Cubs, they recently overhauled Wrigley Field. Look, that's a baseball cathedral. That's their forever home. They're not moving. Things aren't changing, but they are now resettled at Wrigley Field, leaving the White Sox and the Bears kind of up in the air. Now, the White Sox have been seeking a new home since basically last summer. They announced that they would really like to move to that 78 site. It's a neighborhood. It would be Chicago's 78th neighborhood on the South Loop, but they're also asking for, like $1 billion plus of public subsidies to help get it done. And that's kind of been the hitch in all of this. Same thing with the Bears. They had talked for months and maybe almost a year about doing something brand new at the Soldier Field site, right on the shores of Lake Michigan. But they recently pivoted away as of a couple weeks ago out to a site in the suburbs, like 40 miles northwest. In Arlington Heights, a site and a former horse race track that they bought, and now it's their intention and ambition to move out to the suburbs because they weren't going to get the public subsidies they wanted to help redo Soldier Field and that area. So we've talked about some of these teams, but we're missing one that made a major announcement this morning. The Chicago Fire FC of Major League Soccer, they are announcing a soccer-specific, privately funded 22,000-seat stadium just south of downtown Chicago. Oh, and the location is very interesting. Like that's the biggest part of this. Actually, the privately funded part is also a pretty big deal. I'll let you soak in that rendering there for a second before we move to Fire FC owner Joe Mansueto, who said this. He's a Chicago native from the area, lives in the area. Quote, "It is my belief that these stadiums should be privately financed." Whoa! Most of the value accrues to the sports team, so it's only fair that the sports team shoulders the cost of its construction. I'm sorry, I need to stop right there. If you're a frequent viewer of this channel, you know how many teams, like right now at this moment, are trying for public subsidies. They're trying to get a city, a county, a state to chip in to help with construction costs and infrastructure costs. And this soccer-specific stadium, it still might need some more infrastructure help along the way. We'll get to that in just a second. But how many times have you seen any owner have a quote like this to say that, hey, I believe that this is our responsibility. They're going to make a ton of money off this, but they're the ones that are going to shoulder the cost of construction. So that's kind of a major part of this Chicago Fire FC announcement, too, for their brand new stadium. That should be totally understood that, like, this is a big deal. This is unprecedented, and this is kind of why Fire FC are able to move in on this site and get it done quickly and kind of do it under the radar and then make this quick announcement and have everybody wondering, well, what does this mean for the White Sox? More on that in a second. This site is along the Chicago River, a $650 million estimated cost, privately funded, expected to open by spring of 2028. It's not far away from the team's training facility. And of course, it's also going to include a surrounding entertainment district. Nobody builds just a stadium anymore, but it's also still going to require some additional infrastructure and cost and probably public support there. Maybe the developer called Related Midwest, maybe they'll be a part of this. But it's not just the stadium. This site is going to need some help to relocate train tracks and utilities and all that stuff. But it's a great site. It's a great location. I mean, this site, once had a baseball field made in the middle of it, like last summer. Do you see that right there? I mean, first off, look at this view, this untouched piece of land right there with the skyline of Chicago, with transit, with the river right there. Could you ask in all of North America for a better potential site for a sports venue? Like, I don't think you can. It doesn't get much better than this. The thing is, though, that's why the White Sox were after it last summer. The White Sox literally built this pop-up field Like, they had their grounds crew come out and make a major league caliber, although I do think it's missing the mound, a major league caliber field at the site of the 78. They had a bunch of influential people and politicians come out and hit grounders or take grounders and hit some batting practice. I mean, look at that backdrop right there, right? But the White Sox, they pitched this site, they made this site, or at least they made the baseball field there last summer. They've got renderings for this site. They've been talking about plans for this site. There's certainly not been a lot of movement on this site, because when you're asking also for $1 billion, and the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois are pretty much not moving on that at all, it's really a non-starter, they're not getting anywhere with that site. But privately funded, like the Fire FC are doing, that's getting the wheels in motion. I mean, look, when the White Sox came out with their renderings, where's the soccer stadium, right? That was never part of the plans. And look, they're not the entire developer of this site, but they clearly thought, as of last summer, there was no way any other team or any other stadium would ever be on this site. In fact, one more thing, the White Sox had also talked about when they vacate their current location, Rate Field, Guaranteed Rate Field, U.S. Cellular Field, Comiskey Park 2, whatever we're calling it, when they vacated the old stadium, they were actually going to fix it up and modify it, the old stadium, to be the new soccer stadium for the Chicago Fire, who, by the way, I should have mentioned this too, in case you didn't know, currently playing at Soldier Field. They're seeking kind of their own soccer-specific forever pitch, and the White Sox were like, hey, take our old digs on the south side. And the Fire have obviously pivoted and kind of leapfrogged the White Sox in this process. So I know what you're thinking. Wait, are the White Sox officially out on the 78? What's their stance on all of this? Well, they, of course, saw the news, and maybe they were aware of some of this, so they put out a statement as well this morning saying, quote, Related Midwest, the developer of this site, first approached the White Sox about building a new ballpark on a piece of property they were developing, and we continue to consider the site as an option. We believe in Related Midwest vision for the 78 and remain confident the riverfront location could serve as a home to both teams. We continue to have conversations with Related Midwest about the site's possibilities and opportunities, right? So that's saying, the door is still open. We're still in the game. We're still in the mix. But are they really? That's my new little chime for the takeaways. Let me know, by the way, in the comment section, do you like that? I do takeaways for pretty much every video I do. Do you like that kind of transition into the takeaways? Sorry, got off track there, but I do want your feedback on that. Here are my takeaways on this topic and everything going on here. It's amazing how quiet and how quickly this moved for the soccer club. And the reason why is obviously private funding just gets things done. You don't need to go sit with the Illinois state legislature. You don't need to ask for money. You don't need to grease the wheels of politicians. You just say, hey, $650 million, we'll pay for that. We'll take care of that. We'll work directly with the developer. There might be some things you need to get approved, and that might take weeks or months, but not years. You're not waiting years for this to happen and public votes for this to happen. Like, you didn't hear much speculation about a soccer stadium or that the White Sox would be out. It's crazy how under the radar this was. And then boom, it appears on a random Tuesday morning at the beginning of June, and they're going to get this done, they say, by 2028, the spring of 2028 for that soccer season. That's a pretty quick timeline for things to advance. So private funding gets things done. It's amazing how quick and quiet and under the radar all of this happened. Related Midwest, right? So if you're talking about the White Sox as a partner and Chicago Fire FC as a partner and Related Midwest as a partner as the developer, they seem motivated to do things like this. So if there was ever kind of a friction point between Related Midwest and the White Sox, I mean, you can just say that it's not on Related Midwest. They are the developer. They are interested in putting sports stadiums on their site. And maybe there still is room for baseball and a soccer stadium, but maybe not anymore. It's 130 acres total. Is that about right? The point is, now we're starting to get crowded. With everything else you want to do on this site, there's now going to be kind of that rub and that tension of, well, two teams vying for more space, overall use of this site. But Related Midwest obviously seems motivated to do a deal, make a stadium with somebody for this area, for this location. My point in all of this for the White Sox, I mean, this is more a video about Fire FC, but this is kind of trouble for the overall White Sox situation. Despite their quote, despite how they put things in a statement, it kind of feels like they are the odd team out here. Like they now all of a sudden have to figure something else out. And look, if they were asking for $1 billion, this likely wasn't going to happen for them anyways, no matter what. But the point is, what happens next for the White Sox? Do they start to float again? Rumors about, Nashville, or how about Utah, or how about the White Sox to Portland? I know that deals with realignment, and there's a lot going on there, but let's also remember this. Baseball is bound to have a lockout, a work stoppage, following the conclusion of next season, and after that, pretty much anything can kind of happen. So my point here is, the White Sox uncertainty, to some degree, I don't know that it exists on a large scale right now, and I think Chicago is too big of an area to only have one team and to let one team get away. But they are going to float this out there that they can't get something done, that the fire moved in on their stadium site. They're going to use all of this, trust me, I guarantee, as more reasoning to kind of fan the flame of they need to move, they need some help, they need this, they need that. It certainly is an interesting situation in Chicago. Okay, so that took me like 10 minutes to explain all of that. I tried to move quick. There's a lot going on there, but let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. Also, thumbs up. You made it to the end of this video. Really appreciate that. Helps me, the video, and the channel. That thumbs up down below. Also, hit the subscribe button. Follow this channel. Subscribe to it because you know I would love to see you back here next time.